You're listening to Something Cheeky, a collection of podcasts where two sisters discuss TV, books, and movies with just enough irreverence and far too many pop culture references. Welcome to Something Cheeky, where we're discussing the TV series Vikings. I'm Nikki.
I'm Rosanna.
Well, I've watched the entire series. Rosanna has only watched up to what we're covering today, which is Season 3, Episode 2, The Wanderer. In this episode, we go from cheery to ominous faster than you can say, "Bring me my uncle's head!" Rosanna, what was your reaction to this episode?
There was a lot that happened in this episode. It was sort of a whirlwind of action.
Yeah.
I was not a big fan of the excessive slow-mo sequences. I mean, one or two, I'm like, yeah, that really adds to the story, but, I mean, it felt like the episode was actually longer than it should have been because it was slowed down so much.
Is there a double speed option on Hulu?
There should have been for those. I'm not opposed to a slow-mo, but it felt excessive in some points. And I think they were trying to make it feel sort of mystical, and they were trying to put an emphasis on different scenes, but if I notice it, it's too many, I think. That aside, it was a good episode. There was a ton of stuff going on. We bebopped all over the countryside. I mean, we went everywhere.
Would you say you cowboy bebopped all over the countryside?
Why would a cowboy bebop?
It's a show.
Cowboy Bebop is a show? What?
Yes. I've never watched it, but it's a show.
There's a show called Cowboy Bebop?
Yes. I have no idea what it's about.
Where have you even seen that that's a thing?
It exists. I'm going to prove it.
Is this like a Netflix thing? Is it a children's show? Is it a children's show? It must be.
Okay, it's a movie. It is... I'm not sure if it's manga or anime.
Oh.
I don't know what the difference between manga and anime is. It's an animated series. We'll call it that.
Alright, that's really weird that you knew that, and also that's weird that there's such a thing called that, so...
What was your favorite quote from this episode?
The quote I chose is by Torstein, and I have a feeling that we're going to have to say goodbye to Torstein for real in the future.
Aww.
Soon, maybe? Because he is not looking good.
He looked pretty bad by the end of the episode.
He really did. But before it got really, really, really bad, he says, "I want you to cut off my arm, because it's killing me, stupid. It's no good to me anymore. I don't want it. In fact, I've always hated this arm. It has to go."
I wrote that one down just in case you didn't say it.
Yeah, I picked this one because, for one thing, it was really funny. And another thing, it shows his character about, you know, how he jokes around a lot, and even when he's in a lot of pain and he's probably kind of scared about what's going on, he's still joking around. And it really reminded me of, like, a Weasley twin.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember when George got his ear cursed off, and he said, "I'm feeling something about being holy"? It just seems like something one of the Weasley twins would say. Like, "I don't even like this arm. I've never liked it. Please take it away." So I thought that was funny.
I've been waiting for an excuse to get rid of it.
Exactly.
So let's get into the action. I split up the action geographically because it was bouncing back and forth all over the place. I think it'd be too confusing to go through it as the show actually went through it. So let's start with Mercia. The episode opens here on the Vikings dancing around. They're celebrating their victory while I'm going to call him Mouthbreather Burgred while he watches from across the water. The camera just zoomed in on him and he's just with his mouth wide open, and it seemed pretty perfect for his character.
Doesn't he look like he could be like the son of Earl Haraldson? He's got the same kind of facial features as that actor.
He looks a lot dumber.
Well, yeah.
I think the casting was really good, but I also think the actor did a really good job at just making himself look stupid the whole time in everything that he did. He always looked uncertain or worried or confused. He never seemed to have a confident moment.
I don't know why you're giving him props for that. I look like that every day.
You're not a mouth breather, though.
That's true.
At least you weren't last time I saw you.
I try to cover it up when I'm with other people.
Mouthbreather is watching from across the way, just dumbfounded as to how this happened. And he can't do anything about it because they don't have a bridge. They can't get over to the other side very easily. And his men are all having to watch this. they just had to stand there and wait while the other guys got defeated, and now they're just waiting to see if it's their turn. We get back to the Viking camp, and Torstein is acting very strangely. He's not eating. I guess Rollo's the pharmacist of the Viking camp because he always seems to have magic mushrooms with him. He just gives them out to everybody. Gives them to Torstein. Later he gives some to Quenthrith. I remember he gave some to Floki at one point. He's got them all over the place. And I'm assuming he brought them with him, unless he has found them foraging in the forest.
Oh no, he seems like the kind of guy that just has them on him all the time. Anytime you might need a little pick-me-up.
He's our Viking drug dealer. What a bro.
It's not a pick-me-up as much as anytime he feels like he needs a paranoia vacation. Because the thing with the other guy and the leg, what?
Oh my god.
What was that?
That was insane. I'm pretty sure that was actually insane.
I don't know if they seem like they spent a lot of time and effort making us like Rollo again, and now they're just turning it back around and making him do weird stuff like cut off some guy's leg and grope Princess Quenthrith. What?
There were some weird things happening this episode.
My top 3 is not this, but it was almost the top 3 WTF moments. Because just number 1, just the cutting off of the leg because he didn't like the angle. I just couldn't get past that.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Go to rehab!
What's the Amy Winehouse song?
They tried to make me go to rehab, but I said no, no, no.
I said Rollo, no.
I said Rollo, no. Now I feel like I have to rewrite the whole song for Rollo.
That's our new theme music for this show.
It's just my poor interpretation of Amy Winehouse.
Quenthrith is getting drunk herself, and she demands her uncle's head. Floki is very happy to oblige. He giggles again. I love it when he giggles.
Yeah, and he almost acts like somebody asked him to go pick an apple from a tree for him. Like, hey, Floki, would you go grab me an apple? He's like, of course, no big deal. But it's like actually somebody's severed head.
And I have a feeling that Quenthrith asking for the head is what inspired them to cut off all the heads and hang them from the boat.
Oh, that makes sense.
As we have not seen them do that, I do not know that as a Viking war tactic.
I feel like that could have been number 2 on the WTF Moments top 3 list.
It was pretty intimidating. I think it worked very nicely.
It was a good visual intimidation tactic.
It was terrifying. And what made it even more terrifying was the shit-eating grin on Ragnar's face in the front of the boat.
Wasn't that just like the perfect expression? I mean, usually
really
when he's acting weird, it kind of puts me off, but this was a perfect face. It was perfect.
It really was.
And if I was standing on the other shore, I would have run away too.
Yeah, those guys did not hesitate. They just turned around and fled.
Yeah, I mean, all of the Vikings, so they've got the heads of people that the guys on the shore probably know those guys. So they're seeing the heads of people they know hanging on this boat. And then you've got a bunch of Vikings smiling at you in this real creepy way with like crazy eyes. I mean, everything you've ever heard about the Northmen, they're just in your face with it right here. And that's terrifying.
And it's worse than you even imagined.
Yeah.
It's very smart.
Well, like, who says it later? Baby cow? He says something about Ragnar going from a farmer to a king. Not everybody can do that. That's a Ragnar thing. It's because he's smart.
It also seems like the Vikings are taking the stereotype about them being barbaric and using that seriously to their advantage.
Yeah, well, yeah. It's great for intimidation because it's a story that's come ahead of them. They don't even really have to do that much work to make it continue, you know?
Mm-hmm. It is interesting, the difference between the Vikings and the Saxons in the way that they approach battle. For the Vikings, killing and dying in battle, that's how you get to Valhalla. That's how you get your glory and your fame. For the Saxons, for the most part, in this era at least, killing is what they do to maintain their religion and to keep that. It's not as much about glory for themselves.
Right.
And it's not a personal glory. It's a glory for your god kind of thing in a lot of cases. And so it's a very different motivation.
Well, and I think it makes the Vikings even more reckless, because to them, it's okay if they die.
And it's good if they die. That's how they want to die, so...
Yeah, and the Englishmen are doing everything they can not to die, so they're going to take less risks, and that's going to be what kills them, which is ironic. But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, we talk about motivation a lot in the Vikings podcast and when we talk about the Gentleman Bastard series, and it really steers characters in a solid direction once you know what their motivation is, you know?
Yeah. Gwenthrith goes to town stabbing the head of her uncle, whose name I don't even remember. Uncle Pedo.
Uncle Pedo. That's terrible. But yeah, appropriate, yes. Yep.
So Uncle Pedo is dead, thank God. She stabs his head all up. She's in a frenzy about it. And she explains to Ragnar when he asks why she wanted him dead so much, that he did terrible things to her. He submitted her to terrible and humiliating things to her since she was a child. And listeners, we're not going to get into the details because they are disturbing, and I'd really rather not recount them. So if you want to know the details, you can go watch the episode. Feel free. But we're going to move on to how it actually affected Gwenthrith rather than what happened to her specifically. So she has a really great reason to hate him. And also, I think, to hate Burgred. She says that she was also raped by her older brother, Burgred, right? Mouthbreather.
No, he's her younger brother.
Oh, okay.
She loves him. She wants him to come and be on her side. But he's been confused and twisted around by her uncle. The other brother that abused her is already dead.
You know what got me confused is because of the real story where he was actually younger, maybe.
I forgot that you had said that, but
that's why I was mixed up.
That makes sense.
So up until this point, she was a very one-dimensional character, where she was basically just an nymphomaniac that wanted to take over Mercia. But finding out this about her background gives her a little more dimension. It's a very unpleasant dimension, but we now understand her motivation in a lot of cases, and the trauma that has caused her, I think, to act so differently from other Saxon women, and so openly wanting of sex and breeding with Vikings and things like that, but just being, having a very different approach to sexuality.
In addition to that, I think it also shows her motivation for wanting to take the kingdom, because she doesn't want her uncle, who she knows very well is a terrible person. She doesn't want him to rule. She doesn't want him to rule her family's land. And I think that that's a couple things. You know, it shows why she acts the way that she does, but then it also shows why it's so important for her to be in the position of power. For her to be able to rule her own lands the way that she wants to by a person that isn't this terrible, terrible man. And then also for her to take all the power back that was taken away from her when she was a child and now.
And also probably looking to the future, because if he was in charge, he could continue doing whatever he wanted with her and with her future children if she has any. So we move on to Bjorn. He's with Thorin and he's angry with her because she's risked herself too many times in battle. And she goes off accusing him of not believing in fate, not believing in the gods, not believing that they would keep her safe if that's what they want, or kill her if that's her fate. I'm not quite sure how he gets there, but he just stops and asks her to marry him. He's still angry.
Worst proposal ever.
It really is.
What kind of woman is flattered and turned on by this proposal? He pretty much just throws this proposal in her face. And then she gets this goofy grin. What?
Yeah.
Girl, no.
Here's the question too. Why does he want to marry her? Just because she's having his child? So maybe so he can get some semblance of control over her as her husband?
I can't imagine he would think that he would have more control just because they got married. She said
she's a free woman now.
She can't make it any more clear that she's not going to do what he wants. She's going to do what she wants. And if it happens to be what he wanted too, good for him.
It's a very unexpected and strange proposal.
It's a terrible proposal.
And I don't think we even go back to them as a couple this entire episode.
No.
It's just this one little scene.
So he just screams this proposal at her. She gets all goofy and says yes, and then he just walks away. There's no kiss, there's no ring.
He stomps away.
So, like, he's mad, so he proposes, and then he's mad that she says yes, but he would also be mad if she said no. What? She should have just said, why don't you go calm down and we'll talk about this when you're not acting like an idiot.
He's like 17.
He really is. It's a very immature sort of attitude that he's got.
This is when the infamous scene happens where Rollo gets really high, chops off a Saxon soldier's leg. Ick. It seemed like he actually killed the guy with the axe, like he went for his neck.
This scene for me was another one that was like a weird slow-mo kind of thing, because Rollo was high, and I felt like it went on way too long.
I agree.
Didn't it just seem like it was really dragged out? I honestly, I got kind of bored with the scene before it was over. I was just like, whatever, can we just move on? I don't understand what the idea behind this scene was.
For me, this scene very quickly turned into like a high school party gone wrong kind of feeling, where people are doing just weird stuff. A girl comes over who's drunk, Gwentworth comes over, and she's drunk looking for some other guy, and he starts like groping her, and she's pushing him away, but she's still kind of laughing, and everybody's laughing, and it's just...
Definitely like a high school or a college party. Which, was that the goal? I mean, why would that even... I don't understand the showmakers putting this in. What was the point?
It seems to have the same feeling for me as that scene back in the first season where everyone, including Applestand, got high and they told him the story of Ragnarok, and it just seemed like a really strange thing to include in the show. It didn't really fit with everything else in that episode. The scene reminded me of that. You could have taken out this scene and nothing in the episode would have been affected.
Right. Yeah, what was the point? I don't know. Are we trying to turn the audience back against Rollo after we've sort of made him seem like a more likable character? Now we're going to say he's a drug addict that loves torture?
I can't tell if the writers are fickle about Rollo or if they're just trying to confuse us or make us think that he's incredibly complex and sometimes acts like he's 16 and sometimes acts like he's mature. I just don't get it.
This is not the way to show the complexity of a character. This isn't complex behavior. This is immature behavior. It just didn't make any sense to have this here. I don't understand it.
Well, it seems like he's been headed back toward immaturity this season anyhow. Like when he's talking about, it seems like he's tired of Siggy.
Yeah.
It's that same sort of thing.
Maybe now that he's back in Ragnar's good graces, he doesn't feel like he needs to behave. Maybe this is really what he's like. Maybe the way he was before, he was faking.
Maybe he's regressing.
Yeah. I don't like it.
Yeah. I liked interim Rollo.
Yeah, me too.
But this Rollo, not so much.
I like convalescing Rollo.
So it's at this point that the Vikings sail up back to that little, it looks kind of like a bay, or just a little inlet where Burgred's army is. And they have the heads hanging from the boats, and Ragnar with that grin on his face. It was fantastic.
It really was.
And the soldiers just desert. They do not wait around to find out what the Vikings are going to do to them. Gwen is yelling at Mouthbreather on the shore to stay, says they won't hurt him, but his army captain, I'm not quite sure what to call him, general, gets him to leave. It's a trust but verify situation. Back at camp, Torstein has stayed behind. And he is really sick. His arm looks so bad.
When he went out to the water, I thought he was just going to die.
And later in this episode, I think it's after he got his arm taken off, or maybe just before. I think it's just after. He's staring out at the water again, and I think that he may be contemplating again that same thing.
I don't understand this path with this character either. I don't understand it.
What exactly do you mean?
Well, so we've shown Torstein all of this time to be the Joker, and he messes around, and he's fun, and he's funny, and all this kind of stuff. Then the last episode, we show him as a little bit of a darker character by knocking up two women and pretty much acting like he doesn't really care. He's just trying to get away from them.
Yeah.
And now we're going to kill him? It's a strange progression, right?
Well, I don't know. So it seems, I don't know if it's enough to call it a trope, but it seems pretty common that the Joker characters, they always seem to be the ones that are more prone to depression. I mean, how many comedians that we've heard of have killed themselves?
Yeah, that's fair.
It seems like there's a lot of people that are good at comedy or they're the class clown, That's because they use that as a defense mechanism or a way to cope. Because, I mean, self-deprecation is always very funny. Not always, but mostly.
It's pretty much always funny, yeah.
What would I know? Ha ha ha, meta. And this is something he can't joke his way out of. You can joke your way out of relationships or relationship problems maybe, but not out of gangrene in your arm and a really bad infection in your blood. Also, losing his arm, I mean, he's a warrior. That is his identity. And if he doesn't have an arm, maybe he can't fight anymore. And what does that mean for him in Valhalla and for his standing in his community? I mean, he could lose all of that, so it seems like a pretty sincere response, I think, to consider suicide.
I'm not totally against his reactions. I just think it's kind of weird that this is what's happening to his character.
I agree with you there.
I mean, why have they decided to go in this direction?
As much as I love Vikings, sometimes I feel like maybe they're switching out writers sometimes and don't tell each other what happened before. And
they didn't bother to watch any of the previous seasons.
Yeah. They seem to change paths so often with some characters.
That's true. Maybe it is
out of
just
nowhere.
writers, yeah.
And maybe it's just Michael Hurst. Mouthbreather Burgred runs off, and Aethelwulf is sent off to find him. I was actually a little surprised that Aethelwulf went so willingly with something that Ragnar basically commanded him to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know how he feels about the Vikings, and being commanded by one, that seems like that would chafe.
Maybe he went along with it just because he didn't want to hang out with them anymore.
He really didn't want to be on another ship with a bunch of dead guys' heads.
He's like, give me a mission!
I'd like to get out of town for a while. Let me run some errands. Which he does. He catches one of Burgred's men, who's riding quickly, I think, to pass a message along somewhere. He gets him to give up the location to where the army is hiding really easily, just with the threat of torture. I mean, his cheek gets a little bit burned, but it doesn't actually have to torture him to get the information. And they're staying in this Iron Age fort. Also, they called it an Iron Age fort. Seems weird that they would have that term in this time.
That they would have named ages?
Yeah. This was in the Iron Age. Really? Is that what you're going to call it in 700?
Maybe it's like when we say, that was built in the 80s. You know, I mean, we give times names, so...
Yeah. In the Victorian era,
right.
It was.
It is a little odd, though.
And I wouldn't have caught it if it weren't for the closed caption.
Yeah.
That I was watching. And the army's waiting for reinforcements. I was really, really glad that Aethelwulf didn't hurt him anyway. And he said, we're not all like the Northmen.
I was really surprised he didn't kill him.
And him saying they're all not like the Northmen just feels like so much truth right after we saw what Rollo did.
Yeah.
I mean, this episode really shows the differences between these warriors. So back at camp, there's another lively game of quarters going on, which these guys seem to really like.
And more slow-mo. Right? There's a ton of slow-mo.
Yeah, it was weird. Were you just accidentally pressing pause over and over again? Is that what was happening?
Maybe.
He requests that someone cut off his arm, and Bjorn offers. He was right up on it. I think sometimes that Bjorn might like this sort of thing a little too much.
I wonder if that's it, but I have another theory. I think he's trying to seem strong and ruthless to Ragnar.
And tough. Oh, okay.
I think he's trying to show that I'm just as good as you are. I'm just as good a warrior. I'm as tough as you. I'm as strong as you. If somebody needs their arm cut off, I'm your man. You know? I would prefer it to be that over my sweet little giant Bjorn being bloodthirsty.
Can I get that on a shirt? You need an arm cut off? I'm your man. Bjorn Iron Man. He's like the doctor you never want to go see. There is no hesitation or delay in this amputation. Everybody jumps up to get moving. They get the axe heating up on the fire. They lay down the board. They hold him down. And Floki just comes right up, gets that axe in there, and starts hammering the axe down.
I liked that everybody worked together to do this preparation. You know, everybody, there wasn't like, would you go get this, would you go get this? Everybody's just like, this is what needs to be done. We're all going to take care of it. And I think that once Torstein said, this needs to come off, it's killing me, everybody else was like, yeah, it totally does. And now that you've said so, we want to help you. Nobody really wanted to say it to him, maybe.
Yeah.
But once he decided, then they all said, yeah, we don't want you to die.
Yeah, no nonsense at all. Just right to it.
Probably not the first group amputation.
There was a lot of screaming, as you'd expect. Even later, he still looked terrible. Though I'd imagine it would take a while for the infection to clear.
Plus, he hasn't been eating, and he probably isn't clean, and, I mean, there's probably a lot going on. Not to mention the whole mental toll it's taking on him. Plus blood loss. I mean, there's a ton of stuff going on. Plus, he's probably in shock, also, which can kill you just by itself.
That's true. I'm sad we'll never again get that picture we had of him. Maybe at the beginning of the second season at some point, where they were invading a Saxon village, and he stood up in front of everyone with the giant bow.
Yeah.
And got the guy on the horse. I mean, that was pretty epic look right there.
Cool.
No more bows and arrows for him.
Poor guy.
Aethelwulf returns with the news that the army is on top of the hill in the distance. And Ragnar thinks that they're being drawn away from their boats. I'm not sure if that's true or if that area was just convenient for Mouthbreather's army.
Yeah, I wondered about that too. I think with Uncle Peto dead, Mouthbreather's just like, I don't know what to do. I mean, he's got these advisors, but these advisors probably don't know that much about fighting Vikings. I just can't imagine that they had enough foresight to try to lure them away from the boats. I don't think that's what they were doing. I think Ragnar was giving them too much credit.
And he was obviously following his uncle's lead and just command. I don't think he was thinking for himself at all.
No, not at all.
That's Mercia. Ready to move on to Hedeby?
Yep.
So Baby Cow is talking to everyone in Hedeby to convince them that Earl Ingstad has been removed both peacefully and legally. So it's totally okay if they choose him as Earl.
What does that even mean, peacefully and legally? What does that mean?
That he doesn't have to overthrow her by fighting to get the earldom.
Okay.
I think that's what he
Out
means.
of all of the Vikings that we've met, how many of them seemed concerned with the legality of the earldom? How many seemed worried? Zero. Zero seemed worried. Why was that part of his argument? I guess maybe because they all like her?
Well, that and he does not have his own fighting force. And so he has no real way to take over earldom unless she basically forfeits it, which is, I think, is what he's saying. So in order for them to accept him as Earl, they have to accept that she is not Earl anymore. And since he didn't beat her, which is how people get the earldoms, he's got to give them some excuse to accept him. He makes fun of her for being a woman, the frickin' jerk. He says, there's nothing between her legs but a goat's beard. Ha ha ha.
Okay,
so funny.
There's a couple things wrong with that. One, it's rude. Two, it's not funny.
It was such a frat boy movie joke.
Yeah.
Where everyone's laughing because they want to be his friend because he's in charge and not because he's actually funny.
Yeah, it wasn't funny. He's not.
Yeah. He's sitting with Einar, just the two of them, having a nice little dinner together. And it looks like they're in a restaurant. Is it just me, or does it like all these tables set up? He says he had a dream that Ragnar tore out his liver, which is the seat of life, and ate it. And I was surprised you didn't use this for your quote. When Einar asks if Baby Cow was afraid of Ragnar, he says, what sensible man would not be afraid of a farmer who made himself a king? That basically sums up this whole show.
Yeah.
Everyone should be afraid of Ragnar all the time.
At the very least, respectful.
Yeah. He's not a man to be trifled with.
You don't want to get on his bad side. You're either his ally or you're dead. That's all you get. Can I ask for one quick spoiler? There aren't any more blood eagles the rest of this show, right?
I am not telling you anything.
I mean, I can't imagine that they would use that more than once. No, I don't know. Even just Torstein getting his arm cut off was pretty graphic.
That was. All right, I'll tell you this. In recorded history, there is another blood eagle for somebody in this series, but they do not have it on the show.
Somebody else in this series, their real life counterpart was?
There is a famous blood eagle that happened in history, and they do not include it on this show. I'll tell you when we get to that point.
Ugh.
You missed a blood eagle, but
okay.
You don't have to see it. That's one. I'm not telling you there aren't any others, but there is one that you don't have to see.
That's okay. Ugh.
So, about Baby Cow wanting to be famous, do you think he will be? What do you think is his future?
I kind of have two thoughts on this.
Okay.
One, Lagertha should show up and kick his butt, pretty much, for trying to usurp her. Two, I think Lagertha is going to hook up with King Egbert, and maybe she should just let somebody else take over Hedeby. But I don't want it to be Baby Cow, because he's a baby cow. So, I don't mind her, giving it to someone to be in charge of. But I don't think it should be him, and I do not think that he will be famous.
Okay.
I think he made too big of a deal out of it.
Ah.
He jinxed himself.
That's everything in Hedeby. You ready to move on to Wessex?
Yep.
Let's go to the Lovebirds. Got the Wessex settlement. Lagertha and Egbert are there. And Lagertha wants to know what happened to the previous farmers. And as we thought, Egbert had them all removed. But he will guarantee the new settlers' safety, he says.
I hope he at least compensated the people he kicked out.
I don't know. I always wonder about that guy.
I mean, I doubt it, but I wish.
Yeah. Well, it's also possible they were maybe like tenant farmers or something, where they didn't actually own the land. He just made them go somewhere else.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe he let them use land that was just farther away, that the Vikings wouldn't have wanted because it was too far away.
And through their translator of Applestand, Egbert asks if Lagertha is a free woman, gives her his sexy eyes. Egbert picks up some dirt and symbolically gives it to Lagertha, and they don't need a translator for this. Applestand just looking on, so happy.
He really is.
I feel like he would be pretty happy to see them together. He's pretty happy at the idea of the two of them together.
Yeah.
Because he likes them both so much. That's why people set up their friends together, because they like them and they want them to like each other.
And it's hard for me to be super suspicious of Egbert because Athelstan likes him.
Mm-hmm.
I almost trust him more because I trust Athelstan.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's misplaced or not.
Well, Apple's a good guy. And
he is a good guy, and I think he's a decent judge.
He somehow makes friends in very high places. Very easily.
His two BFFs are very powerful men. Very powerful.
Yeah, his two BFFs are freaking kings. And his next BFF in line, Lagertha, is an earl.
Yeah, he's just like that guy that just is friends with everybody, and it just works for him. But he's a likable person. It makes sense that everybody likes him.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
He's never done anything just to be mean, just to be spiteful, just to be rude. He's always polite, considerate, thoughtful. He's just a good person. And even when he's struggling with his own, inner turmoil, he's still polite to people. He's still helpful. He still seems like he cares about where they're at mentally and emotionally.
Yeah.
And that's a strong person that can put aside what they're going through to help people that they care about.
He's my favorite. We see Lagertha in the field, just getting very dirty, working very hard. And over this scene, we see the seer from Kattegat, remembering the prophecies that he gave to her about a harvest celebrated in blood, and a trickster whose weapon cleaves her, and a new one that we did not hear in the episode where he gave her those prophecies. He says, I see that a marriage of plow and sword will sustain you until you become a virgin once more. What do you think that means?
No idea. I really feel like King Egbert wants to marry Lagertha.
Okay.
Even though they don't speak the same language.
That would be difficult. This is straight out of Love Actually. It's Comfort's going to show back up, having learned Old Norse.
Just the entire language.
Mm-hmm.
It sort of seems like it might be trying to say that Lagertha is going to, turn Christian and get baptized and be a virgin again, or whatever they're going with that. But I just find that really hard to believe with Lagertha, though, because she it seems like her faith to the gods, to the Norse gods, is very strong. So,
I agree.
Even though I think that it seems like it could be referring to that, I don't think that's what it is. So, I'm not sure. I mean, how do you get re-virginized? That reminds me of a joke.
What's the joke?
I don't have my virginity anymore, but I have the box it came in.
And this, listeners, is why this show is marked not safe for work. Oh my god, that's great.
Right?
I love it.
How many people are you going to tell that joke to tomorrow?
So many. I would tell everyone I see. I'm going to be in HR by 11 a.m.
So,
oh my god.
With the relationship to Lagertha, I don't know what this means.
You said it might be like a baptism. There are more baptisms than just a Christian baptism. We had kind of a symbolic baptism with Thorin when she became a free woman and she went in the water and came out. And
oh, it could be like a symbolic sort of baptism. Read it to me again.
I see that a marriage of plow and sword will sustain you until you become a virgin once more. So plow and sword, so farming and fighting, it sounds like.
I gotta think this has to do with Egbert.
Okay.
But why do I think that? Maybe just because they're really pushing the puppy dog eyes between the two of them.
Well, and he is the Christian side, and he is the obvious suitor for her right now. And those things together.
What could they mean by become a virgin once more? I don't think they mean, like, physically, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know.
Somehow purified?
I guess, or maybe like a starting over kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
This dang seer, I never understand what he means. Until after it happens, and even then sometimes I'm so confused. And also now I'm kind of worried that he's gonna die, so...
Why are you worried he's gonna die?
Because Siggy saw him, well, they all saw him in the dream.
Oh, that's right.
So...
I forgot about that.
Yeah. Even though he's really creepy, and his makeup's terrible, and I still don't want him to die.
I saw a picture of the actor without all the makeup, completely unrecognizable, as you'd expect.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what he looks like without it.
Yeah, and he has both eyes. He's always kind of background characters and things. I don't think you'd recognize him in anything at all. Egbert asks Applestand to bless one of the houses, and he starts praying. He's interrupted by a man who has what looks like a carved idol of the Vikings in his hand, and is very unhappy about it, and sits it on the shelf and walks away. And everyone is startled. Looks like it's caused some offense.
Yeah, I have a hard time with people that are intolerant of other religions. I think that there are a lot of different religions, and people can worship whatever they want, and you can think that what they believe is wrong and evil and they're gonna go to hell or whatever. But that's no reason to be rude when somebody's trying to pray. I just don't understand the intolerance. I understand that this was many, many years ago and people were, Vikings. But
more insulated.
Just what people do in the name of religion, I just can't comprehend it. It's insane.
Yeah.
So I wasn't a fan of this scene. The guy was really rude. And I wanted somebody to say to him, man, that was really rude. You're just a rude person.
I agree. But on the other hand, some farmers, maybe even this guy and his family, were just kicked off the land for some foreigners that don't even follow the religion of the country they're in.
Wait, what? Okay, I'm confused. The guy that put the statue on the thing, was he not a Viking?
I don't think he was a Viking, because remember, Egbert brought in some of the people to help out.
Well then, what was it a carving of?
I think it was something he found when they were unpacking.
Well then why would he set it up?
Something of the Vikings.
Why would he put it up and not, throw it on the floor or something?
Because that would have been rude.
If the guy that picked up the idol was a Christian, he would not have interrupted Applestand saying a Christian prayer.
I don't know if that's true. He may have been in the mindset of, I'm helping out these Vikings, whom I already don't like because they kicked us or, my friends or whomever off this land. I find this idol, they don't even believe the same religion. Now, if somebody's trying to pray, they're not going to fix them. They're not going to change the Vikings. So here's your frickin' idol. You guys do whatever you want. That's how I felt it was.
I'm going to respectfully disagree. And a further point I have to make.
Point, counterpoint.
If this guy was English, an Englishman, his king just asked someone to pray and he interrupts in front of the king? Does that seem like something an Englishman would do?
That doesn't seem very smart.
It's going against the king, which is important to them, and it's going against Christianity, a Christian prayer. That doesn't seem like them either. That seems very uncharacteristic for an Englishman.
But also, I get the king part, but ignoring that, the person doing the prayer looks like a Viking. Athelstan looks like a Viking at this point.
What I got from it was a Viking that pulled out his idol and interrupted a Christian prayer to put up his own statue of what I thought was Odin.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know what he was either. Unfortunately, the Vikings and the Saxons don't wear team colors, so we don't know.
They really should. They need little pins or something.
Shirts and skins, maybe? Vikings should be skins. Yeah, I didn't even think about that guy being English, so now I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Egbert heads back home. He invites Applestand and Lagertha.
And she's like, yeah, I'll come with you. I need a bath.
Yep.
Oh, Lagertha.
It immediately changes to everyone at dinner. Much cleaner. Lagertha looks much better. Her hair is all done. She's in a nice dress. She's very clean.
Oh, she's so pretty.
Yeah. Judith is also at dinner and very interested in the pagan ways of the Northmen and asks Applestand about them in her coy way. Back and forth was so funny. He says, Lady Judith, you are such a good Christian woman. How could I describe such things to you? And she looks at him as she eats something. And Egbert is over there just trying not to laugh. It's great.
I liked Egbert in this scene, too. I liked him pretty much in the entire episode.
I like him with Judith right here in this episode, too. And he is picking up a lot about her that I wonder if Aethelwulf even knows about her.
And it's like, Egbert doesn't even care that it's his daughter-in-law wanting to cheat on his son. He's like, this is too interesting for me to get in the middle of. I just want to see what happens.
Well, he loves Applestand so much.
Yeah.
I mean, they're such BFFs.
Well, and everybody knows
Just wants to be happy.
that this was a marriage, a political marriage.
Right.
So I guess maybe that's part of it.
And Egbert has not shown any particular affection for his son. Let's be real here. He doesn't seem
He's actually
to care.
been the least polite to him out of everybody else he's ever interacted with, which is kind of sad.
Athelstan starts to tell Judith about religion and the gods, and Lagertha perks right up when she hears him say Odin. And he's being very honest about his confusion about what he believes and what gods he believes in, and he doesn't have a clear delineation between the two faiths anymore. It's all mixed up for him now. And then Lagertha gets a very pretty necklace from Egbert, and as he calls her beautiful, Applestand is just staring at Judith.
Mm-hmm.
And while all this is happening, hilarious saxophone music is playing in the background. It's so over the top.
It's very much like a romantic comedy, a scene from a movie.
Yeah. Usually I don't notice the music, but that one was just like all jazz. I was just thinking of John Hamm as the sax man in SNL, which is the greatest sketch. I'll have to put a link up to that sketch, the John Hamm sax man sketch. It is so great. We move on to Applestand in his, I don't know what to call that room. In his study, I guess, where he does all the writing. His studio. Judith appears and asks him to hear her confession, since her usual confessor, the bishop, is not there. And it's always weird to me, and I always forget about it, but I don't even know if it's historically accurate. But it seems like in all the shows about royalty that also have a lot of religion, everyone has a regular confessor.
Yeah.
Which is weird that they don't just go see whoever's around.
Maybe he's the only one around. Maybe they don't have more than one local bishop. I mean, because maybe if you're royal, you don't go see a monk or a priest or whatever. You see the bishop or the archbishop because you're royal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe you go higher up the church chain.
The church train. Is that like Soul Train? It is. It's like Soul Train.
Climb
it's about the soul.
The Jesus Mobile.
I also wonder if it's about the secrets that they tell. If they'd rather they all stay with a single person that they have control over. So, as I'm sure you'll agree, this all seems very contrived just so Judith can tell him she had a sex dream about him.
How did Applestand not see that coming?
I know. And she doesn't just tell him she had a sex dream, or a dream where she slept with him. She really enjoyed it. Like, not just that she sinned in her dream, but she enjoyed sinning very much. And she just drops the mic. She just gets up as soon as she says it and leaves. And he's just sitting there in shock.
Okay, and when that happens, I thought the same thing that he thought, that he said to her later. You didn't stay for your penance.
For your penance? Yeah, I thought that too.
That's not how confession works, dummy. You gotta say some Hail Marys.
Oh my god.
Come on. Yeah.
It is very high school, just the admitting of a crush and walking away before they can say anything.
Yeah. Applestand. He's so adorably naive.
Yeah. My notes just have clever girl written in them for this scene. Oh, Judith. We're getting a lot more information about Judith, and I like it.
I'm glad that he didn't just, like, sweep her into his arms and kiss her on the mouth and, oh, Judith, I've thought of you also. I'm very glad it didn't turn into, like, a Fabio book cover moment. Because I would have been disappointed in Applestand if that were the case.
I think Applestand is the last person who could pull that off. He'd probably be even worse with girls than Bjorn is.
And I hope that is accurate. I don't want him to be good with girls. I like him just the way he is.
He has no experience with women. I'm pretty sure he had sex once, and that was because he was a sacrificial lamb.
And I don't even know for sure if that's exactly what went down.
That's
I'm
true.
open to the possibility, but I'm not for sure on it.
Also, he was super high, so I don't know how much he remembers.
Right. He was way out of it.
I cannot picture him at all. I just keep trying to put him in situations in my head where he would be smooth, and never would he pull it off. It would always be adorable, but it would never be smooth.
Which is why I want him to end up, if he ends up with someone, I want it to be someone that can appreciate these parts of him that are so endearing, and not to take advantage.
So basically you want the girl who plays our invented secret girlfriend for Jean in the Lies of Lagertha to be Applestan's girlfriend too?
Well, that makes it weird, but her sister.
You know, I feel like I never put it together before, but I do think that Applestand and Jean Tannen from the Lies of Lagertha have a lot in common.
They have what seems like a similar base personality. I mean, I think that their experiences have shaped them into being different men, but at their core, they're similar.
I agree.
Are you saying that you think Applestand is a Cancer?
I do not think Applestand is a Cancer.
Here's the thing about Applestand. He has no hard outer shell like a Cancer does. He's all soft belly.
I'm leaning toward Aquarius or maybe Pisces. I think Aquarius.
I would agree he's probably a water sign. Yeah.
So listeners, if you're very confused right now, in our other podcast about the Gentleman Bastards book series, we got on this tangent about identifying which characters were what astrological sign because we thought it was hilarious. and so now I kind of want to do that with these characters too. Rollo's definitely a Scorpio.
Yeah, I think so.
Falls right in there. He's intense and passionate and so hard-headed as to be stupid a lot.
Yes.
Which is so much like me, because I'm a Scorpio too. I don't know enough about all the signs though to pinpoint everybody.
I really don't either, but I'll tell you, listeners, if any of you guys know a lot about, I'm gonna say astrology, not astronomy, because that's, for whatever reason, that's what I keep saying. If you know anything about astrology and you are a big fan of the show and you can put these characters in their signs, I would love to hear the opinions on that.
Yes.
I think that would be really interesting.
Tweet us or Facebook us and tell us which signs you think every character falls into.
Yeah, that'd be super cool.
I want to know. Applestand and Lagertha are going to leave. And they're thanking Egbert, who's really happy that Applestand has taught him to accept these two different cultures. Do you think that this acceptance will stick?
I hope so.
Okay. Lagertha thanks him for the necklace and says it's beautiful enough to have been made by dwarves. And says, of course they have them in England, they just don't see them. And I looked it up because I wondered about that, and dwarves are all over Norse mythology, including, how do you say it? Norori, Suori, Austri, and Vestri, North, south, east, and west. The dwarves that hold up the sky.
Oh, that's cool.
I think so too. Judith, of course, is so sad that Applestand is leaving. But Apple's glad it will save her from further sin. Like she's gonna stop dreaming about sex with him because he's gone. Egbert notices this and warns her away, saying that complicated people are interesting, but dangerous. And then very strangely, without any additional information, Athelstan and Lagertha back at the settlement, he walks up to her and he has stigmata. His hands are bleeding from the wounds he had gotten when he was crucified. And this happens at the same time that the stranger in Kattegat appears with the injured hand, and at the same time that Torstein is bleeding from his removed arm.
Not sure where they're going with this.
So let's talk about Kattegat. We don't get a ton of scenes here, but we get a few. We finally get some women hanging out together.
Yay.
Helga, Aslog, and Siggy are all taking a walk. And I can't tell if this passes the Bechdel test or not, because they're talking about dreams, but their dreams are about a man. So...
Well, their dreams are about a figure. It's not like he's a named man or a man with a face. Right now he's just a figure in the dream, so...
Helga is the first one that talks about the dream. She dreamt of a stranger with no face. He walked silently through the snow, dripping blood that steamed as the blood hit the snow, and he was carrying a ball of flaming snow in one hand, and the other hand was covered in blood. We find out that they all had the same dream, which is exciting and mysterious. At another point, Siggy goes to the seer's hut, calls him Ancient One, which is a new term we haven't heard before. She finds him on the floor. He's injured. There's lots of blood. There's even blood on the ceiling, like arterial spray, which I only know about because of cop shows that I've seen.
Because of all the murders you've committed?
Yeah. It sprays really far and it can hit the ceiling because it has so much power behind it.
It gets on your clothes and then you have to burn them, otherwise you get caught.
Yeah, it's such a hassle.
It really is. Poison is so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard.
Oh, Game of Thrones. Poison is a woman's weapon.
Well, yeah, because the other ones are messy.
I will tell you this. Somebody gets poisoned in the next episode of Game of Thrones.
What?
And it's not a woman that does it.
Are you giving me spoilers right now?
It's not important.
Somebody gets poisoned and it's not important? I find that hard to believe, Nikki.
No, it's... Well, you'll see. You'll see.
You're the worst. You're fired.
We see basically everyone in the show, so who knows who it could be. I mean, that show was all over the place, that episode.
Fired. Quit trying to talk your way out of being fired.
Okay. So, this is also a dream that all three of the women had. All I was thinking was, are they a coven now? Is that what this means? Later, Helga's walking through the marketplace, and a stranger appears, and he has the injured hand that is dripping blood and streaming in the snow. And he asks Helga for help.
Excuse me, miss. May I trouble you for a moment? I'm bleeding quite profusely from my hand. You may recognize this injury from a dream you've had recently.
I have hiccups now. I can't stop.
Who is that guy? He looks very familiar.
He's always side characters in movies, but he usually plays a bruiser.
I was going to look it up, but then I was like, oh, what if I get a spoiler for what he's doing there? So I didn't.
Yeah, you shouldn't.
He sort of looks like he could be the brother of the guy that plays Doug on The Cutting Edge. Like D.B. Sweeney's brother.
Yeah, it's Kevin Durand is his name. Yeah, he has been in a ton of stuff because he's always fighting.
Yeah.
He was in The Strain, that TV show. Did you ever see that? About the vampires in New York?
No.
It was really gross. You shouldn't see it anyhow. Yeah, he was in the horrible Mortal Instruments movie, which was somehow worse than the TV show.
What? That's impossible.
Oh, no. It was worse. It was so bad. He was in the Robin Hood movie with Russell Crowe. He was in Lost. I forgot about that. X-Men Origins.
I feel like I remember him as a soldier.
He's usually some sort of soldier or fighter. But, yeah, always kind of side characters. That's all the action that happened in this. There was something I noticed. There is a writing term called Rule of Three. Have you heard of that before?
I have.
For anyone that doesn't know what it is, it's the exact definition is it's a writing principle that suggests that events or characters introduced in threes are more humorous, satisfying, or effective in execution of the story and engaging the reader. Readers are also more likely to remember the information if it's presented in threes. It also helps to create a pattern, which can be memorable as well. So I noticed things happened in threes in this episode. And there are actually 3 sets of threes that I counted.
Ooh, creepy.
We had one rule of 3 was the treatment of captured enemies. So in Mercia, Gwenthrith stabbed Uncle Peter's head. For the Vikings, Rollo killed the Mercia soldier, or amputated his leg. And for the English, Aethelwulf released the Mercia soldier after the threat of torture got the information he wanted. So we got a pattern of treatment of enemies throughout the episode. My second one was hand or arm bleeding. So we had the stranger wanderer with his hand, Athelstan's stigmata, and Torstein's bleeding stump of his arm after the amputation. The last one was dreams.
Yes.
So baby Cow dreamt of Ragnar eating his liver. Judith dreamed of sex with Applestand. And Aslak and Helga all dreamt of the stranger.
Yeah, I didn't realize there were 3 dreams until you put it that way. Forgot.
Yeah. And even the women had their own 3 because it was 3 of them having the dream. So there was a lot of 3 stuff going on in this episode that I thought was pretty interesting. And heck, maybe if that's what they were going for, which they had to have been going for that, because
seems pretty intentional.
When you go back and add it up like that, maybe that is why they included the scene with Rollo.
Well, when you were saying that, I was thinking maybe that is true. Maybe that's the case. But even if that's why, it was still a weird choice.
I agree.
For what it's saying about Rollo as a character, it's odd.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm not sure what the overall reason for having that is, or if it's just a...
Could it be that it's setting things up for a stretch across the season, since this is only the 2nd episode? Are these sort of themes that are going to, arc throughout the season? Maybe not dreams specifically or hand injuries specifically, but maybe it's something that they're trying to make stand out in our minds, so as the season progresses, we look back on.
Actually, the definition did say it makes things easier to remember, so
yeah.
maybe they gave us those so we would have those points to remember.
Maybe, so when things happen later, we're reminded of these things, maybe?
Yeah.
Maybe reminded easier instead of trying to come up with them. I don't know, because I haven't seen the rest of the season, so ask me in 8 weeks. I don't know.
What do you think about Applestan's stigmata? What's up with that? What's up with that? What's up? I will never get tired of Keenan Thompson's What's Up With That sketches. So what's up with that?
So, was it both of his hands? It was, right?
I think so, yeah.
And these are long since healed injuries, so he didn't just accidentally reopen them.
Because Judith touched the scars, and they were scars.
So I thought when he started bleeding that Lagertha was dreaming. Because everybody kept dreaming about people bleeding. So
interesting.
I thought Lagertha was just having a dream. The show doesn't come out and say these are our strict rules about how much supernaturality we're including in the show. So when I see something like this happen, I assume it's a dream until I'm shown that this is something that actually could happen.
Okay.
They never said, and by the way, also stigmata is a thing. I mean, We've seen Applestand bleed from his hands before, after they were healed, and it was his imagination.
Right.
So...
maybe it's his dream.
Maybe he's dreaming, maybe Lagertha's dreaming, maybe Lagertha is hallucinating it happening. I guess I'm not willing to commit to what's happening to him until I see what happens next, because I don't know how far this mysticalness can go. Because 3 women sharing a dream, that's pretty supernatural / mystical.
Yeah.
So we've definitely taken a big leap right now into this new territory. So...
right. The show's never been very clear about if we should believe what the Vikings and the Saxons believe or not.
Yeah.
They've given us things that seem to push us in one way or the other, but they've never come out and said, and yes, here's Odin.
It's left up to our own interpretation.
We're still waiting for Chris Hemsworth to come on as Thor, and he hasn't yet. So...
I would love that so much. That would just make my day.
So next week, we're going to discuss Season 3, Episode 3, called Warrior's Fate.
Yeah, it sounds like Torstein's gonna die.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, he got hurt in battle, and he's not doing well. Seems like the logical conclusion is that he's a dead warrior. I don't really want him to die. I feel like I say that a lot. I just, the only people I can think of, I don't really feel very strongly about. When I was thinking maybe Baby Cow, but I don't care about him, and he's not really a warrior. And then I was thinking Mouthbreather, but he's not really a warrior either. So I don't think we're talking about Ragnar, because Ragnar's, his fate is ongoing. A warrior's...
We hardly even got Ragnar in this episode.
This title has a sense of finality to it.
Ah, it does.
I mean, somebody's gonna die, and one of these characters is in really bad shape.
I'm not saying it's gonna be you, but it's gonna be you. Okay, Rosanna, it's time for top 3. What's your category this time?
The top 3 times love was in the air.
Oh, do tell.
Number 1, Lagertha and King Egbert were goo-goo eyes all over the place, and he's giving her dirt and jewelry, and she is lapping it up.
Dirt.
And I think it's adorable. Number 2, Bjorn screeches a proposal at Thorin, and she loses her gosh darn mind about how excited she is that he's angry proposing. So there was that.
Oh my god. I love your description of that.
And then number 3, what is up, Judith, you little hussy, propositioning a monk in a confessional.
To be fair, he's a super hot monk. He's a Viking monk.
And he technically can't really take confession anyway. So...
Like she cares.
She's like, you go get in that closet, and I'm going to get in this closet, and I'm going to tell you that I like you.
Mm-hmm.
There were some awkward love moments. There were some weird love moments. But there's definitely a lot of love moments in this episode.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of romance. So who's going to get the rose? The end of the episode.
Who will get the rose? Who's giving the rose?
Oh my god, can you imagine a Viking Saxon Bachelor episode?
I think the Vikings would just kill all the Saxons.
Kill their competitors. So predictions for what's going to happen next. So you think Torstein's going to die. What about the settlement and Lagertha and Applestand and Egbert?
I like the idea of Lagertha and Applestand just, hanging out. Working the land.
Till she becomes a virgin again?
I don't understand. I don't know how that works.
Maybe his stigmata will virginize her.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know what's up with the stigmata thing, so it's hard to say where that's gonna go.
And stigmata is awfully Christian.
Very. If it's actually happening, I'm worried about him, obviously, because your hands shouldn't just start bleeding. And I could definitely see that Lagertha would be very concerned about him also. And it might even, if this is actually happening, it might set her on a course of learning more about Christianity and how it's related to what happened to Applestand and what that means according to Christianity and its history. Or it could just be a dream and she could wake up from it and say, hey, Applestand, are your hands okay? And he's like, yeah, of course they're fine. Why? No reason.
This reminds me of an episode of the Art Curious podcast I just listened to recently. It's about the miraculous statues that cry and bleed from their eyes and how there have been, a whole bunch of them over time. And Jennifer Dassel, the narrator and writer for that podcast, and she's an art historian, she talked about, it was really interesting, how only a couple of them have been actually, I guess, verified. Authenticated, yeah. The rest of them are pretty much just ignored, and so many have been proven as hoaxes. But what is really interesting is that they used to have a lot of them that cried, but then it started changing to bleeding instead. And about the time that happened was right after TV came out, and blood showed up a lot better on film than water did.
How convenient.
Yeah. How convenient for those miraculous statues. Yeah. And one of them even, she pointed out, and I thought this was really interesting too, the church actually did a DNA test on the blood that was coming out of one of them.
Wow.
Yeah, and they used science to prove that it was fake because it matched the DNA of a woman that had been making it bleed.
Huh, interesting.
I always wonder about that kind of stuff with stigmata. Like, how do they make the blood come out? Does stigmata count as just blood appearing, or does it actually make wounds that cause blood? I just wonder how the blood part works. Maybe it's different for different stigmata-ees. I'm not sure what to call the people.
Yeah, it's been so long since my stigmata that I just don't even remember if I had cuts or...
Oh my god. Okay, now you're going to hell.
Oh, the sacrilege!
Do you have any more predictions? What about this Wanderer? Who is he, and what's he gonna do?
Based on our earlier conversation, I believe that he is a soldier. No, I don't know. I'm assuming that this is the closest town that he got to after he hurt himself.
Okay.
So...
Yeah, it seems like he must have done it recently if he's still bleeding that much.
I think that him showing up is... I don't know how to explain this. It's not related to the women having the dreams in that he didn't send them the dreams ahead of himself. Like,
okay.
He showed up, but they happened to be having... This is not making sense.
No, it's not. So I understand that you don't think he sent the dreams, so he is not a supernatural being. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I believe that
okay.
That him showing up might have been prophesized through these dreams, but he didn't have any control over that.
Okay.
Is that more clear? I don't...
So it was fate, but he wasn't causing that. He's just as affected by it as they are.
It's like this was a timeline that was meant to happen, and he's just following it because it's his timeline. But these women have gotten a vision of it. But I don't know what is special or important about him that all three of them are dreaming about him. And it also makes me wonder if anybody else is dreaming about him, and these are just other people that don't talk to these women. I often remember my dreams, but I don't often talk about them. So we could all be having matching dreams all the time.
We could be.
I mean, because how often do you talk about your dreams unless they're something really stood out?
Not often. And everyone ignores me because nobody cares about other people's dreams.
It's true. Nobody does. Unless they happen to have had the same dream. I don't know what this guy showing up means, where he's from, why he's here, was he on his way somewhere? He doesn't have a horse or anything. It didn't seem like he had like a pack, or he wasn't carrying much.
Yeah, he just had a cloak.
So, did he not come from very far?
What about the seer? They had that dream and their other one came true. I was surprised they didn't send someone off to go check on the seer immediately when they are.
I cannot believe that they didn't go send someone to check on him immediately. I hope he's not dead.
So this isn't really related to what happened in this episode, but I do want to know what you think of why we've only seen certain people go see the seer. So Ragnar's been there, Hork went, Jarlborg went, Lagertha went. I don't think we've seen Bjorn there by himself. He went there as a child with his father, but we have gotten prophecies about Bjorn. We've seen Siggy go. We've seen... Has Aslog gone?
No, I don't think so.
So not Aslog, not Rollo, and not Floki.
Applestand didn't.
That's true. Oh, I'd love to see that.
Me too. Though he did talk about Applestand, he just didn't actually see him. He said that he was alive.
Right.
I wondered that actually in this episode when Siggy went to see him before I knew it was a dream. She's gotten to go see him a bunch of times. How do you get to go? Why is it there not always a line out his door of people wanting to know?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have to pay him besides the hand licking. Or if there's some sort of like, you get a certain amount of tokens at the beginning of the year, and that's however many readings you get.
Or you go there once and get a prophecy, and it's unpleasant like most of them are, and you never go again.
There could be that too. But Siggy's been more than once. And I know Ragnar has.
Oh, yeah.
So, I don't know. Is he available to everyone, or just important people?
I would think he'd be available to everyone. Well,
if he's dead, how will everybody know what these cryptic phrases don't mean?
Also, the fact that Siggy called him Ancient One, I thought was very interesting.
Maybe because he sees very far, forward and behind.
Maybe. Or maybe he really is ancient.
Maybe he's Odin. And he just hangs out there, messing with them.
He doesn't have either eye. Odin has one eye.
Maybe he's Loki in disguise, and he really is just messing with people.
That would be funny.
Yeah. I would not be shocked if he is unnaturally old. Yeah.
Okay. Any other predictions about what might happen with Mercia or Egbert?
I think that the Viking Saxon team will take on Mouthbreather and his army and win.
Okay.
I don't think there's much chance of Ragnar's crew getting defeated in this particular circumstance.
Yeah. Mouthbreather isn't particularly formidable.
No, and I feel like he really deserves to die because he's so dumb. But I think that Quenthrith will try to save him if she can.
Yeah.
Because I think he's the only person in her family that's never hurt her. However, I would count this as a betrayal. So
yeah,
she keeps making excuses for him because of Uncle Pedo. So I don't know how far she's willing to forgive, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, do you trust that she actually says she'll keep him safe?
I think in that particular scene where they're coming across the water in the boats, she was going to protect him. She just wanted to make him see reason. However, he ran away,
okay.
So I don't know if she still feels that way.
Now it's time for Cheek of the Week, where we talk about something awesome that we love and want to share with you. My cheek this week is coming up, and by the time this goes live, I think it will have already happened. It is the solar eclipse going across the United States in this lovely diagonal pattern. It's hitting other countries too, but, you know, I only know about what's happening here, because I'm an American. We're expecting about 1 million people in Oregon to come. 1 million people from outside of Oregon to come into Oregon just for the eclipse. That is a lot of people.
And it's going to be like 10 minutes.
No, it's going to be about 3 hours. But like the full eclipse will be about 10 minutes. But it's going to be dark in the middle of the day. It's going to be really weird. So in Portland, I think it's right around 10 a.m. when it happens. And there's a place, it's just south of Portland, that you'll get the 100% eclipse. Where I am, it's like 99.5%. So I'm not worried about going out of town for that. But it's pretty cool and so rare. Last one happened in, I think, 1970 something. 78, 79.
Way before we were born.
But the next one I think is going to happen in 2000, I want to say 47. But it's going to be a while. But it's pretty neat. And I just think that the fact that so many people are, I mean, some people are even like driving the country while it happens to try to keep up with it.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
What made me think about it for this episode is that so many different cultures describe eclipses in so many different ways, and the reasons for an eclipse, both solar and lunar, they always seem to have description based on the gods and things like that. And so I looked it up to see what the Vikings thought of eclipses, and I thought it was really neat. So according to the National Geographic website, nationalgeographic.com, some cultures see it as a time when demons or animals consume the sun or moon. In particular, quote, the Vikings saw a pair of sky wolves chasing the sun or moon. When one of the wolves caught either of the shining orbs, an eclipse would result.
Oh.
I thought that was so neat. We've already got dwarves holding up the sky, so now we have wolves in the sky eating the moon and the sun to make eclipses happen.
Well, now you just make it sound silly.
The sky is all kinds of crazy. I thought that was just really neat, just to see how something can be explained in so many different ways by different cultures that are all experiencing the same exact celestial event.
I bet the Native American story behind eclipses is probably pretty interesting too. They've got great stories for natural occurrences. They really do.
So everyone, I hope that you get to experience some part of the solar eclipse if you are in the right location to do so on August 21st. I know I'll be enjoying it.
All right, listeners, please visit our website to find all of our Cheeks of the Week and learn about our other podcasts. You can send us questions and feedback and support the show.
That's our episode. Please leave us a review on iTunes and follow us on Twitter at SomeCheek, Facebook.com/SomeCheek, and Instagram at Something Cheeky Podcast. To listen to our other podcasts about popular books, TV shows, and movies, just search for Something Cheeky in your favorite podcasting app, or you can find them on our website. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Dig-a-da-da-da-da-da.